it's with great somberness that we feel like we have to do another one of these episodes. But while in preparation for another episode, the wrestling business lost. I, I I can't even put into words what this person means to the business. A pillar of the wrestling industry has passed away. Our hearts and prayers and thoughts and well wishes of, I know, just everybody on this show, but the entire wrestling community go out to the Toombs family and all the friends and family of Roddy Piper. This one's for you, Rod. All right. I like this one really hit me hard. Like as far as wrestling deaths go, and I mean, and it's really kind of morbid that I'm starting the way the show out like this, but as far as wrestling deaths go, this is probably the hardest one to hit me since Savage, because Piper was one of my heroes when I first got into this. Like he was the first heel I ever gravitated towards, and yeah, when I was watching wrestling at the time, he wasn't the heel that he was back in those early days, but there was still Roddy Piper, that character. Just people were cheering for it. Um, I go back to the match with Bret Hart and the match that made Bret Hart's career at WrestleMania 8, and I'm sure everybody has classic matches of his that they could talk about, but we're gonna try and like sum up.
It was kind of the Intercontinental title was kind of the match for me too, because he won the title. He
put the Mountie to sleep.
It was the only title he ever won in WWE.
Right. And it was one of those situations where he was a guy who was kind of undervalued in a sense.
I think he was a guy that was perfectly valued, and it almost seemed like a guy that titles, unless it was the World Heavyweight title, anything else like that just was not worthy of his talent and skill.
Mm-hmm. Well, technically, he was the tag team champion with Ric Flair.
He was yes, he was tag team champion with Ric Flair. Yes.
And then that's when they found out the health problems. They found out, the lymphoma, and the fans saved his life, because if he hadn't gotten that chance to get voted in to be Ric Flair's tag team partner and win the tag titles, they wouldn't have found shit. He would not have lived to 2015.
No, he wouldn't have gone to the doctor, and that's the one thing. Like I wanted to, like, we were all talking about this before this, and that's when we decided to record it. But if I had to sum up a man's life into one word, and the guy would be survivor for me. And this guy survived a terrible upbringing. He survived wrestling's hedonism period of the 80s and lived that period like few other people did. A few of his other contemporaries that aren't here, and some that still are in some capacity. Woo!
Yeah.
He survived cancer.
Mm-hmm.
He survived Hulk Hogan's ego. I mean,
it's funny because you think, well, he's the first one from that WrestleMania 1 main event that is no longer with us.
Wow, it's sad that we have to look at wrestling from the 80s, like who's with us and who's not with us nowadays.
Well, WrestleMania 7 is the big one where we've lost so much from that card. From Savage to Hennig to Piper to Bam Bam to the Boss Man.
Terrible. But this one's gonna hit me hard, and this one's gonna affect me for a while. I'm gonna have to go out now and invest in a Hot Rod T-shirt now, because I'm sure they're gonna be pretty popular nowadays, but not to seem trendy and trite. But it's gonna be a true. I'm gonna look for a vintage one. Be super hipster.
Nice.
I hate myself. Anyway, no, I'll open it up to you guys. I mean, what do you think is the one word that describes his career, Nick?
Transcendent. This dude, when Dusty passed, it didn't get the kind of mainstream attention that outside of hardcore
no,
wrestling.
Because Dusty was a wrestling business guy through and through. Everything else any other attention that Dusty got, and really didn't get very much mainstream athletic sports attention and entertainment. I think the most famous thing that ever Dusty Rhodes would link to would be Maria Menounos could do a good impression of him. But
But Piper, this guy was in more than just wrestling. They live.
Exactly.
And that influenced Duke Nukem. The kick-ass chew bubblegum line that we hear from Duke Nukem came from Piper. Rowdy Ronda Rousey.
He was in the longest continuous fight sequence in cinematic history. I think it had that record for a while. I don't remember. I think something did break it recently, maybe.
But for so long, that was people consider that the greatest fight scene in movie history.
It was certainly the longest. That's what I remember it was. This was a guy that just didn't hold weight in wrestling conversations. This guy was a cultural force. He was I almost want to call him B-movie icon because he was in a lot of good other things other than that. I mean, his appearance on Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one of my favorite episodes of that show.
Mine too.
Where he's not playing himself, obviously, but he's playing.
He was someone who could. Sorry, he was someone who could kind of. I felt he had a more successful acting career than a guy like Hulk Hogan.
Absolutely,
Hogan was in more box office kind of numbers.
Whereas Hogan was the star of the movie, like the driving force of the vehicle was to see Hulk Hogan as Suburban Commando or as whatever Mr.
He was
Manning
frozen today, so that's what I remember from that movie. Just that one line. But yeah, Piper, he was never a leading guy, I mean, he was, and I just recently went through Saints Row 4 again on Xbox One. There's a whole mission based on They Live. He does his own voice in that game.
It's so great. That's like, again, here's a guy that has had just enormous impact outside of his original sphere of influence. He's gone on to do movies. Now, again, Kick-Ass and Chew Bubblegum is going to be, it's going to go down. I mean, it already has, but it's even going to have now an even more. You're going to see a lot more people with They Live sunglasses and the blue flannel shirts and denim jeans. Do you think that was do you think that was actual wardrobe in that movie, or he just came to the set wearing that? That's good, Rod. You should wear that.
And they just rolled with it, yeah. But I mean, it's funny, the sunglasses, the whole thing. And I remember this now because Bart vs. the Space Mutants on the NES. The whole gimmick with that game is you had to find the aliens using freaking glasses. So, again, the influence from either They Live or just Piper himself. Cultural icon.
Totally, man. Totally. Burhan, what about you? What's the one word?
Polarizing. And the reason is he was a guy that could kind of migrate everybody in the room to him. Hogan was the guy who was the man in a sense. He's kind of the guy that John Cena is in a sense, but Cena's kind of better at doing Hogan than Hogan.
Right.
Piper was the guy who you'd love to hate, but you'd love to cheer for. He was very opinionated. He was a guy who
very animated.
People used to say to him, "You're small." Yeah, they're like, "You're too small to be a heel. You're too small to be at the top of the card." And Piper was just like, "Fuck you and your expectations." He was the guy that would.
I'm going to prove you wrong, motherfucker.
Yeah, he could set up feuds just by saying one word.
Piper here's the thing. I think Piper was like invented the shoot promo. I don't know who's the first person to ever pick up a microphone and really start airing grievances that had some real world connotation to them into the actual wrestling product on camera. But I think Piper is the earliest that I can, that brought it in there. Piper said it does in the WCW run against Hogan when he was in the NWO. Do you think people would have cheered for you if they didn't hate me all that much more? Like he basically just said, "I made your career, bitch," because people hated me more than they liked you.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He did the job that he was supposed to. The job of the heel is people want to see the babyface destroy you, and I think that's kind of one of the problems we've got with the industry at the moment is they're too protective of their stars. There's no one person that they try to. They'll test something and then they'll backpedal because they think, oh shit, it's not working, even though they're not booking it properly. Where Piper would be the guy that he wouldn't give a shit. Like, I remember one instance where he was in front of a Mexican crowd, and he was like, and the crowd hated him, and he was like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna play your theme. I'll play the Mexican national anthem, because I really feel bad for what I've done. And then starts playing La Cucaracha on the bagpipes.
Just the way he would get
people wanted to kill him.
Yes.
I mean, can we actually say Roddy Piper's the last guy to get away with wearing blackface?
Yep.
Yeah, the half black, half white fucking face paint. He was a face at the time.
Yeah.
And he did it because he came out of it and just went, you know what? This is how this is going to be done. And no one was shocked. No one was angry. He did what he did, and he did it to further a storyline and prove a point.
Mm-hmm.
And it, for me, really pulled his feud together when he did that. Even when he had a presence in the $1 Million Man feud versus Virgil, when Virgil won the $1 Million Championship, do you think Virgil in any way, shape, or form would have been able to carry that feud on his own? No.
Nope.
Piper needed to be there. He was the kind of the figure that kind of held it all together. And, even when he does that bit where he calls out Virgil, he's screaming down the ramp calling Virgil, and Virgil comes out in the fucking shitty tights.
Are you talking about the boxing things, or are you talking about the black and white striped?
No, when Virgil came out and defeated Ted DiBiase for the...
Yeah, I don't remember what he was wearing, because I remember at one point in time they tried to sell Virgil as like a boxer.
Do you know the candy striper?
Yeah, that's what I meant. The candy stripe uniform, the red and black one, the red and white ones. Oh, Virgil had terrible gear.
He did an MMA recently and said that apparently Ted Turner wanted him to be the figurehead of the NWO.
Yeah, sure, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure, buddy.
All right, buddy. Because that'll put butts in the seats.
Oh.
Really?
That would have totally made the NWO gimmick 10 times better than Hulk Hogan. Oh my God! Vincent! Vincent was the third man! Really? Anyway. I think he's literally...
and it's not...
Sorry.
No, it's not a part of that whole, thing where the only reason he's part of the NWO is because he was cheaper. Nothing like that,
Yeah, well, enough about... I know we've talked about Virgil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we gave him a bit too much time. But the thing is, when it comes to Piper showed how important he was, even if he wasn't actively in a feud. Because I know a lot of the issues he had with his body, he would have situations happen where he would be so beat up he would need to take time off. So Vince would give him time off. He was one of those guys, he was kind of the first guy that would be allowed to have breathers between his feuds. If he was in something completely physical, he would be out of action for like a couple of months and then come back and make a return and get in a feud with someone else. And he never had an issue elevating anyone. He did not give a crap.
Absolutely.
The guy would
and
anyone.
He never had a problem doing anything. I mean, you talk about some of the stuff that he's done. I mean, we go even beyond what he did with Hogan. The feud with Goldust in '96.
Yes.
Was
first of all Chase for one.
Not that moment itself, just the actual build to the feud and everything that went up around it is a masterclass in pro wrestling psychology, because he did everything but call Goldust the F word, and I'm not going to say the F word because I got in trouble for it on the other. Or should I say it anyway? Do you think I'm compromising Burhan if I say it?
You said every offensive term.
I did.
Time,
so he called. He did basically did everything but call Goldust a faggot. And,
yes.
There we go. I said it. That got me banned from a previous podcast, Nick.
With my own. I did the same then. And the thing is, when you see someone like Piper, you always sit there and think to yourself, why does he do what he does? How comes he's as crazy as he is? And a lot of the semblance of Piper's character emerged in guys like Brian Pillman, for instance.
Dean Ambrose.
You saw a lot of guys today. They kind of look at the way that Piper reacts. Hell,
that's exactly. That was actually going to be my next thing.
He was like.
What was going to be my next point is who nowadays. Okay, work it out. What are we going to do here?
Yeah, no, I was saying, do you see like the guy came in with Sean O'Hare, faced Hogan, beat up a fan on SmackDown, and single-handedly reunited his rivalry with Hogan to make it relevant. Two old dudes, right, past their prime, making their rivalry relevant.
It's because it's like they'll always be indelibly linked with each other, like that. That I think when we talk about Hogan's biggest rivalry, like that was. I mean, a lot of people say Savage. Savage was, but I think Piper, because again, it's the feud that Piper that ignited the flame of Hulkamania and carried the wrestling business to heights it had never been to. On the back of Hulk Hogan, but that torch that Hogan was carrying was lit by Roddy Piper.
Yep.
And I guess that's all I had to say about that. Who do you nowadays? We were talking about this before. Just like a couple minutes ago. Who do you think nowadays is has those glimpses? Exactly. Ambrose. Like that's the guy who's the closest. I think Punk was that guy for a while because Punk was like very heavily influenced by Roddy Piper, but I think Ambrose is now that guy where you pay attention to whatever. Like when he says very little, but whatever he does, you pay attention to it because you're gonna see something you're gonna be talking about for a while. I kind of see that sometimes with Bray Wyatt, but Bray Wyatt's like taking it to a whole other different level. But yeah, Dean Ambrose is probably the most.
More Jake the Snake.
I
see more Jake the Snake in the Undertaker.
Yeah, that's pretty.
He's a guy that you can't figure out, but at the same time, he's a guy that
there's just where Piper has just that magnanimous charisma to it.
Yeah, but he's also someone who stands out despite, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why you never saw a championship in around Piper's waist in his earlier career.
He didn't need it as validation, I think.
Yeah, he transcended the title. He was a main event player that kind of signified being the best. But in my opinion, I think he should have had the title. I think he deserved to be the heel champion. But Hogan, a lot of Hogan's politicking kind of stopped that from happening, which is a shame.
I guess we'll never know, man. I guess we'll never know, but I mean, rest in power, Hot Rod, man. You will be missed, that's for sure.
Yep.
All right, moving on from that.
You will be, and
because we can literally talk Piper all day.
Oh yeah, I guess you could easily wrap that up with a quick Iron Sheik tweet of the week, because I felt that would be the best way to close that whole Piper segment.
I will say one thing before I get off the subject myself. From a kid, I can remember the first person that I looked at when my dad bought me the WWE magazine. He used to have all the superstars in their T-shirts and stuff, and they would have little kayfabe backgrounds on each like character. This is when wrestling was kind of rockin' wrestling was going on at the time.
Yep.
You had the Hogan age. And Piper was one of those characters. You just saw in his face, his mannerisms, the way that he would look. I remember reading through the magazine, he was one of the guys that it kind of drawn me to. And the first figure I ever bought from the shops, my dad let me buy a figure because it was that time when he moved our family up to, I think it was like southwest London at the time, because he was opening up a new shop, trying to be an entrepreneur, businessman, and we were sitting there in the basement watching TV, and he goes, "You could have any magazine you want." I was like, "I want this one." Got the WWE, WWF magazine at the time, and then I asked for the Piper figure, and my dad bought it for me. You know, went to a local shop, purchased the figure for like, I think it was like £4 at the time, and I just remember taking it to school, playing with it.
The bendy one, or was it the one? Was it the bendy one?
Yeah, do you know the big Mattel ones? The big Mattel ones where I had the big like springy arms.
I mean, the one that kind of like did like
the kilt on him.
Yeah, it kind of like did like an uppercut kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same one I had.
And you know, it was one of my favorite figures to have. I think I remember losing it because, you know, once he lost the shop, most of my stuff was kind of left there. We had that, and I had a Galaga machine that she sold by my Nintendo. But I remember it, and he would always be someone who's synonymous in my lifetime. I feel that, you know, people always talk about how Hogan kind of paved the way for The Rock to be an actor in film. I'd say Piper was the action star. Hogan was the guy who would basically do tons of movies and look like a complete chump doing them.
Mm-hmm.
He would take anything and everything to make himself stay in the spotlight. Where Piper, everything that Piper did, like, you know, and that's
whether he was,
John Carpenter's They're Here.
They Live.
Yeah, They Live. Sorry, that was a critically acclaimed film. Hogan has never been in a critically acclaimed film.
Right.
This film could stand tall with not just most B movies. It could stand tall with most big budget films at the time. People loved it. They enjoyed it, you know. And it was one of those movies that got a DVD release. I think it had a director's cut as well at one point, didn't it?
It was I would call it a seminal classic, because for its time, it has
definitely
a very I guess a devout following, a certain resonance with people. None of Hogan's movies ever do in a real sense. It's all kind of, this movie is so bad you have to watch it.
And don't get me wrong, when I was a Hogan fan as a kid, I loved his
Everybody
movies.
was.
I loved everything about it. Yeah,
Yep.
he was my go-to guy. I said my prayers. I drank my vitamin. I had my vitamins. And I drank my milk. You know, and I wasn't even a Christian at the time, but I was praying like Hogan. I wanted a cross and stuff. But Piper was the guy that transcended the industry. He was the guy that allowed.
I was the complete opposite of you, because I wanted to wear a kilt and tell people off and come out and have bagpipes play. Like, that's, I don't know. Like,
yeah,
Piper to me, like, that was cool to me when I was a kid. Like, the bagpipes would come out to play. He would come out wearing a leather jacket and a kilt, and then basically tell people to go shove off and just be the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Beat somebody up, and then the crowd goes nuts. I'm like, that's the greatest thing in the world. This is not a guy who's a giant. Not a guy.
Right. Well, look at WrestleMania 21 when he had the Piper's Pit segment with Austin. No person could have gotten away with slapping Stone Cold Steve Austin in the face and get cheered. You know?
Yeah, totally.
That's still one of my favorite all-time Piper's Pits. That period.
Do we have an all-time Piper's Pit? Because I think, like, I really can't. The one with Jericho, was that really a Piper's Pit, or did he come out? He came out with Jericho. Yeah, because that was a Jericho segment that he interrupted.
Right. Well, and these little interview shows, from the Carly.
Exactly,
Cabana,
he invented that.
Yes, Ms. TV, the highlight reel.
He invented the interview segment.
Especially, cracking Snuka in the head with a coconut.
Actually, like we're like the Snuka thing gets obviously the most
attention.
The most attention. My favorite one is the first one. Where he's talking to George, whatever his name, from Columbus, Ohio, who's about as much as from Columbus, Ohio, as I'm from the fucking moon. He goes, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I never lose a match. And, he's like just talking to the guy, and then he just beats the crap out of a jobber. Like, that to me is my favorite, because it was, 3 minutes of Piper verbally berating this guy.
Time and time again, you can say, no matter what Piper was doing, no matter where he was always standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yep.
When he had Andre on it, and he's, oh man, just so great, so great. A complete and utter legend. And yeah, the wrestling world is gonna be. We always like to we like to joke around and say the great promotion in the sky. The great promotion in the sky just got a big one, and
may it never run out of bubblegum.
And he'll never run out of bubblegum again now.
Yep.
And we're gonna get to tie it all together to do our Iron Sheik tweet. We don't have to do any music or anything.
I don't plan on doing any music. This is just straight up.
This is two, because this is kind of two. It's like, I stand behind the Roddy Piper when we both make it to the Hall of Fame. Forever he my brother. Roddy Piper, I love you forever. God bless you, Bubba. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your Iron Sheik tweet of the week.
Iron Sheik, man, he knows how to put it. He knows how to put it.
I couldn't have put it any better than the words of the greatest living Iranian American.
I mean, 2015 has been a crap year for losing.
I know, it really has. It really has. That's why it's got to be 2016 has got to be better, or the rest of this year can't get any worse, because we already lost Roddy Piper.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as, to me, that's, we can't lose Ric Flair and Roddy Piper in the same year. Please, Ric Flair, don't die, because I don't think I could handle that, because it's gonna be.
I'm just wondering how the fuck Flair survived. Flair is like Wolverine.
I heard my favorite, actually, kind of say my favorite story about this, because once this happened, TMZ was the first outlet that had it, and there was that weird period of is it real, is it not? TMZ is a pretty reliable source when it comes to celebrity deaths nowadays. They won't stake their reputation and have to print a retraction on something. There was a report that I read that Ric Flair was at a signing autograph convention somewhere, because it was the NWA symposium. There's some sort of NWA thing going on this weekend down in Charlotte. And someone told Ric Flair that of the passing of Piper, and you look like Flair was, quote, visibly upset, had to be taken away into a private room to, gather his thoughts, and then eventually came back, and like the trooper that he is, did, the rest of the signing, but you could clearly tell that he was,
just
shaken from it. And, those guys were very close, and all those guys were. It's,
Bret Hart,
Yeah, Bret Hart. I think the two best, we're talking about the best, eulogies and stuff like that. I think Bret Hart's was very good, that he did on his Instagram, where he basically says, without Roddy Piper, there would be no Bret Hart. He always referred to him as his cousin, because, they always felt that they grew practically, came up in the business together. He helped him get to where he was. And Jim Ross put it best, and Jim Ross actually probably shared what I thought was my favorite story that I didn't know already. And Jim told the story about after, because this was when he was head of talent relations at WrestleMania 12, and he was basically essentially the liaison between Piper and Vince. And he was very skeptical at first, but Piper eventually grew to trust Jim Ross, and everything worked out well with the creative, and it went over well. And obviously that's one of the great WrestleMania, most memorable WrestleMania moments ever, probably. And the feud itself, like I talk about that. That's like psychology masterclass. They were talking after the show. Piper's about to get his limo out, and he wants to know what's going to happen with the Bronco. And Jim Ross says, "Hang on a minute, Rod. I'll give me 2 seconds." Gets on the phone to Vince McMahon. He says, finds out what they're doing with the Bronco, and then offers to give it to Roddy Piper. Vince says, "That's a great idea. Let's go." Gives it to Piper. Piper's completely floored by it. One of the nicest things ever done. Yada, yada, yada. Platitudes. Cancels his flight home from Los Angeles and drives the Bronco to Oregon. Because that's just the type of person he was. And that to me is a great story, and that's what we'll end the Piper story on, because that's a walk-off right there. So that was our Piper thing. 2015 has sucked. Anyway, we're going to talk about positive stories that have happened in 2015 because there was actually some positive news in the world of wrestling this week, and it's kind of viral story. It's one of these good human interest stories, and the week we've had when you lose somebody like Roddy Piper, you need something like this to make you feel good about the business again. And, somebody who I think just guaranteed themselves a Slammy nomination, by the way. Titus O'Neil was in the news where he went to a local restaurant. Do you guys remember where this was? I completely forgot. Completely forgot where it was. But they were on tour at their recent tour stops, and Titus O'Neil brought a group of homeless people into a fairly nice restaurant and paid for their meal. And then obviously the story gets picked up by news outlets and shared among the world, and it's a shame that more wrestlers don't do this. It's
a shame that more people don't do it.
More people don't do this in general. Yes.
Yeah, being in a position of the same kind of position myself, I'm not expecting people to kind of pay my way.
No.
But I've seen homeless people who have got their hands full of soot, who haven't washed or bathed, who are just trying to, and I don't mean the people who are just trying to score a free bit of extra cash, but those who are basically just sitting on the fucking streets, not knowing what to do, not knowing where their next meal will come from, starving. And I've seen people either do two things. You will look away and walk on, or you just spat at them, or even tell them to get a job. What bugs me is not everything should be about you, when it comes to us. And it comes to all of us. And it's the same to each and every one of us. Sometimes you've got to look at it and look at someone else's life and say, hey, that person's more worse off than I am. And maybe you need to sit down, just talk to them. They probably want someone to listen to them. It's not the fact that Titus basically went out there and bought these guys a meal. He sat with them. He talked with them.
He had a whole conversation. They had a whole nice dinner.
Yeah. He treated them like
this way. I think Titus O'Neil, even whether it was his intention or not, Titus O'Neil has just bought himself a lifetime deal with the WWE just by doing that. Because now you can't fire a guy who buys, 4-star, 5-star quality restaurant meals for homeless people. One. Two.
I was going to say, and look at the example. This is also because he's a father too, so I'm hoping his kids, pick up on this, and they're going to learn a hell of a lesson too. So he's not just helping out, some homeless people. He's being super dad.
Yeah, good guy. Good guy, Titus O'Neil. I think that should be permanently. He's no longer the big deal or the primetime player. He's good guy, Titus O'Neil.
Yeah,
he's he's a person after my own heart who treats people with the respect they deserve, and I think sometimes we need to remember that everybody is a person. Doesn't matter, if you've got an issue with someone. Doesn't matter if you hate someone, which is hate is a very strong word. Doesn't matter if someone's not doing something that you find acceptable. Maybe sometimes you just need to take time, sit down, listen to their story. figure out why they're in that situation. Maybe, not even offer them advice, just listen. Because everybody just sometimes wants someone they can talk to.
Totes my goats. But again, good guy Titus O'Neil.
Yeah.
Way to brighten up everyone's mood in wrestling after a pretty lousy week. Because it was a pretty not so memorable week. I mean, we still had the Hogan thing. We're not going to get into that because that situation is only going to keep getting weirder with a capital W.
Yeah, and
about 4 capital W's.
I will say one thing. Just to kind of weigh it off on the situation, we're not going to go on to like all the situation, what he's done now. But think about it this way. Hogan, I compare the situation as the same one as Tom Cruise in Scientology, or in terms of like other actors and actresses who've had meltdowns because of associating with someone or something or some people. And my opinion on this is this was at a time when Hogan was associated with probably one of the biggest racists on the planet, who nearly got himself killed by saying something very nasty about Awesome Kong, Bubba the Love Sponge, right? He was sleeping with the guy's wife, for God's sake, while the guy was filming it. So it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter, what happened or how it happened, because I'm not condoning any of it. But you can look at the association, look at who he was with, and you can realize this was a guy who was hanging around with someone because he needed some attention. He hung around with a group of people. We've all been there when we've hung around the wrong class of people because we want to be with friends. Some of us have wanted to be accepted, and I've seen like situations with kids way back when I was at school, how kids would instantly become bullies and start beating the living shit out of people because some kids accepted them. Hogan, in all his intents and purposes, felt alone. He probably feels even more alone now.
Oh, he's on a very small island right now.
Yeah, and he was going through a big divorce as well with his wife at the time. He was losing.
We talked about this last week again.
All I'm just saying is, I'm not saying that he had the right to do any of this or say any of this, but maybe take into consideration that people have won our hearts after making terrible mistakes. Robert Downey Jr., Tom Cruise, I can name you a list of actors and actresses who won our hearts.
So you're saying Hulk Hogan have to play Iron Man?
Not necessarily. I just think he can be redeemed. Just allow him to step away from the situation, think about it, and redeem himself. That's what Downey did. That's what Johnny Depp did. Hell, we all remember the River Phoenix incident in the Viper Room. How actors in that culture ended up basically consuming tons of drugs. It's Hollywood, baby. It's what it is. In the end, you got to look at that situation and look at the way that these people's lifestyles and the way that they've lived. It's very easily to get swept into something that, one, is not a part of your moral compass, or two, isn't a part of who you are as a person. Hogan may have said all these nasty things, but doesn't mean he probably even meant it. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say on the matter, because as far as I'm concerned, that was kind of me thinking out loud on that situation.
It's going to get weirder before it gets a lot better. And
I agree. And I think Hogan, my advice to you, my friend, fire your entire PR team and shut your Twitter account
Find new lawyers.
The wrong people are telling you what to do, and you're digging yourself a bigger grave.
Mr. America should make a comeback.
I think Mr. Quiet should make a comeback. Mr. Silence. Anyway. He should go away onto an exotic island for a while, enjoy his time away.
So, now what do we talk about? Because
let's talk about some MMA, man.
all right, because we're gonna try and spice things up, because content is always good on this show, and we kind of had internal discussions amongst the people.
Professional wrestling as well. There's a lot of times where wrestling has its off days. Like currently, we're in a bit of a lull before SummerSlam.
We're in the build. We're in the pre-build to SummerSlam. And
there's a lot of things that we kind of agree with and we disagree with, but
We've talked about it ad nauseum, and we can't really talk about anything more because
it's
what it is.
It's basically.
We don't want to be another one of these podcasts where they just literally just regurgitate what happened on Raw or SmackDown to you.
Yeah,
we want to talk about actual.
And I think what we're trying to do with Slamcast is we're trying to find its feet in a sense, and because
I'm trying to find something at least.
Yeah,
shit.
We've transitioned a lot, and also the forum Wrestling Revolution has changed to Wrestling/MMA Revolution, and the reason why we did that was because we wanted to do something different. We wanted to make sure that we expand the spectrum because we saw that the thing is MMA, pro wrestling's all come from the same kind of background. Amateur wrestling is where this all spawned from. Yes, you have integrated martial arts. And other kind of very techniques that have been added and migrated into the sport, but a lot of the similarities are there. So we decided we're going to open up the forum a little bit. I ran a poll on the forum, and we had a unanimous 8 people who said.
And then actually, was what I did is I overrided the poll because you said you wanted to talk about MMA. I'll talk about MMA till the cows come home. I just didn't think there was a market for it, so we're going to talk about MMA because or all of us humankind are in the middle of something really, really uniquely special. 20, 30, 40 years from now, after everyone that has ever witnessed Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson is long gone senile, we're going to talk about the reign of Ronda Rousey like it's this mythical thing. And I don't know where this is going to rank in the pantheon of her wins, but when you tell the story of this, that there was this undefeated boxing nightmare from Brazil that kicked up a shitstorm and poked the beast, and then she got dealt with.
Yeah, it made me laugh the fact that how much trash talking this woman gave her. Rousey was just she wasn't cool. She was kind of annoyed, but as soon as she hit that ring,
well, when she was coming out, she was a woman on a fucking mission.
Yeah,
she was. You even see it in the her training for this fight when they were doing the public workouts. If you look at her hitting the pads, that was not a sparring session. She was kicking the shit out of those pads. Those things were moving.
This girl has got a lot of pent up aggression that I would be afraid of, aroused but afraid at the same time. She's kind of the one person who single-handedly has actually changed the face of women's wrestling at the moment. And she's not even in professional wrestling.
No. Well, she does kind of transcend the sport, but
yeah,
we're actually... We'll talk about that because I think that's actually a funny thing before we get into the actual fight itself. One thing that's going to come out of this complete, utter beatdown is any hope of there being at least a believable chance that Stephanie McMahon would ever be a threat to Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
Stephanie McMahon never be a threat to one. Stephanie McMahon, the only way she'd be a threat to Ronda Rousey is if she had a gun in her hand, she shot off both her arms and her legs, and make sure that her mouth was wired shut. I still think Rousey would still put up a big fight.
The only way Stephanie McMahon would have a chance at a match against Ronda Rousey if it was a handicap match and Triple H was also involved.
Yeah.
And even then, Triple H is probably going to get himself knocked the fuck out.
Then it's a fair fight. A fair fake fight.
It would never be a fair fight with Ronda Rousey because she would kill them.
She would kill anybody that crossed her. I mean, no one would ever sanction her versus Mayweather because we would see the murder of Floyd Mayweather.
Well, okay.
I would see the murder of professional boxing because you would never come back from it. Professional boxing would never come back from that. If she destroyed Mayweather, you would have a situation where professional boxing would be like, that's it. The sport is a laughing stock.
No, the entire institution of professional boxing is not going to crumble. Because this fight will never happen.
Of course it will never happen, but that's one of the reasons why.
No, that's not one of the reasons why it will never happen. It will never happen because you'll never allow two people of a gender to fight in a sanctioned combat sport. Nope. No governing body on the planet, and I'm talking about even including the seedier parts of Southeast Asia.
What if it was unsanctioned?
No. Nope. First of all, Floyd's not fighting unless it's for money. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, they put the right figure on the table. But what if Floyd loses? If he loses, it's not going to look good for him.
Nope. Well, we know Floyd would lose. I mean, first of all, he would not take that fight unless he was actually dating Ronda Rousey. So there's that.
I just think it's such a bombastic thing, and such a complete bullshit for a man to fight a woman. It would never happen.
Yeah.
Let's stop talking about it. Can we just talk about let's talk about the performance of this, because this was I guess you could say the furthering of the legend of Ronda Rousey, because here she is. We already know she's already an accomplished judo fighter. She's already showed these flashes of greatness in her previous fights where she can knock somebody out and has the speed in her hands. But this is somebody where she literally played her opponent's game and beat their opponent. What's a more hyperbolic word for convincingly? Without a doubt. There was no doubt in this decision. Correa was face down, ass up in 34 seconds.
Yeah.
I like, this is when we talk about this, like 15 years from now, it's gonna be like, it's gonna seem unbelievable. It's unbelievable that what this woman is doing in a combat sport, number one, because again, there's only 10, 11, 12 women that could realistically, say that they're even in the same in the same book as her. She's just on a whole nother page than any other woman that is doing her sport. At least in her division. I don't know if there is a bigger division than bantamweight in women, but this is what UFC needed too, because they've they lost their face with all the John Jones stuff. That was a really, really bad timing for that to happen, especially with this new deal with Reebok now, which I don't like. I don't know how you stand about that, Nick. I personally miss now what we'll refer to as the old days.
Yeah.
Before Reebok, where guys had, custom, like, their own attire, and it was, you felt like you had a distinction. Now everybody looks the same. Now it's either the guy in the black or the guy in the white.
Or the guy.
At least we had guys in red and blue on this fight. I liked it. I didn't watch much of the Ultimate Fighter.
I didn't see any of it, so
no. I mean,
I had no idea, because when I got off work and I got over to this thing over at local sports bar to watch this card, it was on the fucking the Ultimate Fighter finale. I'm like, who the fuck?
Those two fights. The guys' names are escaping me at the moment because they don't have. But those guys are going to be up-and-coming talents to watch, because there's something about the Brazilian fighters. There's something about just growing up in the country of Brazil that you have to endure that hardship every day, and that breeds toughness. So these guys are going to be, not to say mainstays in the UFC for the divisions for the years to come, but they're going to make an impact, and they're going to make an impact fast. And let alone that the impact it's making on their lives immediately to get a six-figure UFC contract in some of these guys' hometown, in their backyard. So you definitely saw a special night last night. Not only that, you saw a match that MMA fans, really hardcore MMA fans like myself and Steven Wago, have been sort of yearning for. I mean, I'm talking about Nogueira Hua. And, well, everybody knows what happened in the Pride fight. This was really not much difference. Nogueira never really looked like he had a real chance of winning. But it lived up to 10 years worth of hype and weight. And when I was watching it, I'm remembering what that fight was like, or watching that fight on YouTube, because we don't have pride in America. But all in all, a good night for UFC. What's next? Rumors coming out now out of USC is that they're want to hold a stadium show this December in Dallas, Texas, at AT&T Stadium. They're going for that record that they set way back in 2011 in Toronto.
Yep.
And who do they think they're going? Who's going to be it? They're going to try and put the two biggest stars right now in the sport, Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey, on the same card.
Oh boy.
Holy mother of God. If this show happens, let me declare this statement right now at 8:36 Eastern Time. If that fight actually happens, I'm going to do everything in my power possible so I could be there to watch Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo and whoever Ronda Rousey is going to fight.
I believe it's supposed to be Miesha Tate.
It's supposed to be Miesha Tate. So Rousey Tate 3, McGregor Aldo title unification fight in Dallas, Texas, with the entire nation of Ireland probably there. I say that's going to be a good time. Nothing has been officially confirmed. That's what they would like to do.
Do you think they would add CM Punk to the mix?
I don't think so. Look,
No,
I think because look, it gives us an excuse to talk about CM Punk now too. Yay! I don't think so. I've said this before about Punk. They've invested certainly a lot of, maybe not money. I don't know if he was a expensive signing, but they've certainly invested a lot of their time and effort, and they're investing.
A couple of mil for him, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it's a $2 million deal.
Okay, so they're investing significant money in him. He's getting paid more than just a sign than some other people get ever make in the UFC.
Yeah, but the thing is, the star power's there. I can understand why, because he has name value. At the time they signed him, he basically broke the fucking internet.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He still is that viable commodity. They're going to try and protect that commodity however they can, and whether that's scheduling him fights in Chicago for his first fight, whether he fights with his teammates over at Team Showtime, which is a very real possibility. They're going to want to make him feel as comfortable as possible going into that, because that will probably result in the best overall outcome for him, unless he just gets completely housed, and then, well, where do you go from there? Who knows?
The way I see it is, for him, it's going to be about him having to win. Punk has to win. In my opinion, he has to win.
Not only does he have to win, he has to win convincingly. He can't let this go in the hands of the judges, because the second this fight, if his first fight ends by a split decision, be like, oh, they're rigging it. Dana's rigging it so the Punk could win. The typical UFC meathead fan will respond, but he's got to win by submission or knockout. He can't leave it up to the judge, or it has to be just so completely obvious where it's a unanimous decision. If he gets a split decision, people are gonna say there was coercion and influence.
There was shenanigans. Yeah.
Shenanigans and tomfoolery. Chicanery.
Yeah. That's the problem. I think they need to make sure that if he's matched up against someone, he's got to be someone of similar ability.
That's also how they'll do it too.
They can't make him look that he's basically going to beat someone who's a jobber. Because if that guy destroys him, like what kind of happened with Kimbo, we all remember the Kimbo situation.
Or like with Brock. Brock's first fights in MMA were against what the guys would call, what the writer who was writing about it called tomato cans.
Yeah, fodder, basically.
Exactly. He fought tomato cans his first 3 fights before he fought Heath Herring.
And that's kind
They're
of
going to protect him. I'm not saying they're going to throw a tomato can in there with him, but it's going to be somebody, whether it's an up-and-coming kid or somebody who's toiled on the circuit for a little bit and they're kind of unsure about that. They're going to scout. They're like, all right, we'll put you up against this guy.
But that's the thing. They've got to basically look at it and say, okay, this is the way that we've got to do it. This is how we've got to do it. And in terms of booking Punk, they need someone of similar ability. Because if it looks like a walk in the park, people are just going to disassociate with him automatically.
It's not going to look credible. He's not going to look like a credible fighter. And if they put him in there with somebody who's beyond his skill level, no one's going to want to see his second fight because he's going to come off looking like garbage, and the guy's going to make him look ridiculous or knock him out. Like if he gets knocked out in, 34 seconds, I don't think there's going to be a second CM Punk fight. I think it's going to be one and done.
Yeah, that's the problem here, because you're signing someone who's never thought, he's never fought in that kind of arena before. And he has to have the proper professional training before he goes in there. I remember back in
well, he's definitely getting professional training from pretty much the best he could probably find. I mean, I'm not aware of what Chicago's MMA scene is like, but when you have a world heavyweight champion, a world champion who trains about 80 some odd miles away from you, you go train with the world champion that lives 80 some odd miles away from you in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Showtime Anthony Pettis and his brother Serge, they're his training partners, and those guys are both prodigies. Like they're this new generation that's coming up now of people that don't come from single backgrounds of martial arts that are well-rounded.
Yeah, of course, because it's not, as I said, it's not the UFC that was in its infancy. It's not the UFC where you had one person versus
discipline
another.
versus discipline. It's now true mixed martial artists are coming.
Yeah, you have people who train in every single style because they've got to be aware of
not only train are proficient in every single style.
I think the first kind of athletes who were doing that at the time were guys like Tio Ortiz, way back. But now it's come to the point where these people are kind of it's organic,
Tito was a wrestler. Tito was a wrestler that, worked on his boxing. He could actually, same thing with Chuck Liddell. They all came as they were wrestlers first, and then they added the rest developed their hand skills and stuff like that.
Now you've got these guys who are proficient in nearly everything. And
exactly. Like Conor McGregor, like Rory McDonald, like the list goes on.
But I still think UFC is kind of missing what Brock gave to it, the kind of the charisma guy,
A heavyweight? Well, no, I think they have that. It's Ronda. Like Ronda's the centerpiece. Like she's who you build your company around because she's attractive, she's dominant, and what else?
She can cut number 3. Amazing promo.
She can cut exactly. She's humble. Here's the thing. She's humble.
Very humble. And I do love the fact, I watched an interview recently where a guy was saying, talking to her about the way she trains, and she was saying about, so what if my body's full of muscle? Each muscle, each body part is trained to do a specific thing. With most girls out there, they want to go and marry themselves a rich daddy. I actually want to earn my own money. And
fuck billionaires is what she wants to say. I think is what she's
saying.
Yeah,
and I just sat there and the mouth on this girl was intriguing.
Kidding me?
She's one of those people.
Me? Are you kidding me? This is my dream girl right here. Rhonda, if you're listening.
She's a middle class. She's a middle class, working class girl.
Middle class here. She was homeless before she went to the Olympics, I think.
Yeah. So think about that, peeps. With the way that she does and the way that she fights, in my opinion, it's kind of, to use a Rocky analogy here, she has the eye of the tiger. She fights like every fight is her last fight.
This was. Do you think this was her Rocky IV moment?
No,
where she
definitely
came
not.
into the other opponent's, the opponent's hometown, and beat comprehensively beat the hometown favorite.
Yeah, she's basically, in my opinion, it was like watching Drago beat the fucking shit out of Apollo Creed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it was. That's how it was. Like
she was a machine. Yeah, and she had that passion. She had that fire
Duke or whatever her name was.
Yeah, she basically went in there as in, this girl, if I don't train harder, if I don't push myself further, this girl is going to kick my ass. And then went in there and she was expecting this girl to give her a round for round, pound for pound fight. So she went in there and gave everything. And the problem was,
her tactics, I think, were best. Is she knew what she was gonna do to start the fight, and she baited her into it.
Yeah,
that's.
But the thing is, this is the thing. This wasn't her on peak. She could have gone a whole nother level, and that would have been disturbing. Do you know what I mean? She looks like, at the moment, she is and I don't use this euphemism as physically, but dominantly, she's a monster. She is the perfect specimen in terms for what she can do. She's cold, she's calculating, and she can also understand exactly how she's going to put it. She has a game plan. She goes in there. She executes it with prime precision.
Now, I mean, I don't know where we're going to rank her in the pantheon of female athletes, but I guess it's amazing that, Serena Williams is in the verge of creating a calendar slam in tennis, meaning for those of you the uninitiated, she's won every single major tournament in tennis in a year. She has something like an 85% winning percentage overall for her career. Dominant since she's gotten into the sport. We're still talking about Ronda Rousey, who's had 9 fights.
And do you know why?
Really, 6 fights that people have really cared about.
And you know why?
Because she's doing that to what she's doing to people. She's making them look silly. And
she has that Roddy Piper kind of aspect to her.
That's what I said. I love what she did after the fight to Correa after he stopped. She says, "Don't cry, don't cry," which was the exact thing Correa was mouthing to her in the at the weigh-ins, because that was one of the things that Correa got on her for. Correa said, "Oh, Ronda's soft. She cries all the time. About her father and all this other stuff." She poked the beast, man.
And
that's going to be one thing that's exactly. She pissed in God's eye, and God blinked. And I think it's going to be a future warning to every future opponent that Ronda Rousey might face. Don't try and make her angry. You're not going to like her when she's angry. You're just going to make it worse for yourself. Here's the thing now is I don't think there's anybody in the UFC currently that could beat Ronda. The only person who I think
but we may see it happen.
There has been that rumor, and it's always been kicked around, and just like
there's always gonna be that great white hype. Do you know what I mean?
No, there's the one person that everybody wants to see her fight, and it's Cyborg. And there's like I said, there's 2 UFC rumors that are just never gonna go away. When's Fedor gonna come join the UFC when he need that paycheck? And when is Cyborg gonna fight Ronda? Until those things never happen, people are always gonna think it's gonna happen, or they're gonna want it to happen.
But it's like in the world of professional wrestling, once it does happen, then people just sit there. They can either be amazed by it,
but here's going MMA. You just go, now what? We had that. Yeah. Now it's happening next. Like, we're at least in wrestling. Now what happens next? These guys have a feud for, the next 2 months on Raw or something like that, and then do it again. But in this, you have to wait a lot longer for this person to get their next title defense. Luckily, I think I said, if Ronda's trying to fight December, we won't have to wait all that long for her to fight. It's 4 months she's going to take off.
But that's what I'm saying. It's different from professional wrestling, where these guys they basically work nearly say like
she
what was
works
that,
too.
30...
I mean, she was doing press for the
No,
Entourage
that's
movie.
the thing. She does the press conferences and stuff like that, and does the promotions and bits. But I mean, actually in the ring, like most wrestlers, like guys like John Cena works nearly 360 days a year, maybe 320,
something like that,
depending if he gets injured or not.
Right now, that's one thing we could talk about too. John Cena's broken nose. Holy shit!
But in terms of Ronda, she has that, and the thing is, I'm not going to take anything away from it because their sport is a lot different. I've competed in both. I've competed in mixed martial arts and I've competed in professional wrestling, so I can actually talk about both. I've worked with the London Shoot Fighters, trained with them, and competed in a couple of events. And
I've watched a lot of both.
So I can say how physically UFC for pound is more physically. Mixed martial arts is more physically kind of a combat sport, where professional wrestling is kind of you're more. I would class it. Yeah,
professional wrestling is a grind where
and you
mixed martial arts is a car accident. You just you have to like grind at it and train it and work at it. But the factual fight itself is only once. You only do it once. You only get really messed up once, or putting yourself in any sort of physical serious harm once.
Yeah,
and then it's over with for 3 months.
And then you do your thing and train
rest,
again. And
you recover, and then repeat the whole thing.
And build to the next event, and that's what you're doing. With pro wrestling, you're kind of constantly grinding.
You're doing that, but that recovery process is the night before.
Yeah, it's like being on a
8 hours of sleep.
With pro wrestling, it's like being on a treadmill and you're grinding. Constantly grinding your joints, whereas UFC is kind of the high impact
and your sanity.
The big thing, and then you withdraw, you recover, you rest, and then you build to the next event. And it's a process. With the UFC, with stuff like that, you get to diet. You can maintain your diet. You can maintain your health. You can manage your health a lot better. Pro wrestling. It's the reason why we see a lot of early deaths in pro wrestling and why we see a lot of fatalities is because there's not that rest and recovery. It's spontaneous. It's 365 days a year. These guys work more dates than Cirque du Soleil, which is basically the equivalent of the impact sport that you see that professional wrestling is. Pro wrestling is one of those where you're going to get injured. Unless you're Superman like John Cena, the guy who broke his nose quite recently, so I'm going to use it to kind of segue on that. He broke his nose quite recently.
We're going to temporary segue. We're going to temporary segue onto that. We'll go back to Ronda, and then we're going to talk about it.
He broke his nose quite recently in a match with Seth Rollins,
which was a great match, by the way.
It was a great match, but I still don't like the United States Championship being involved in a main event feud.
Yeah, that's where we are. Let's see where we go with it, and that's for another episode.
But we're
going to talk about that match. You want to talk about that match?
Yeah, he busted his nose big time. His nose looked like he fucking got like whacked in by a bloody golf ball.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not saying people aren't allowed to chant John Cena sucks, but like that's the only time you could say John Cena sucks, because this guy proved to me. Well, it proved that to me a long time ago, but he should have proved it to everybody else that doesn't believe that he is the most dedicated person to not the WWE and the wrestling business that there is right now in the company. There are so many guys that would have, if that happened, roll out of the ring, would have thrown the X's up and get out and gotten coverage. John Cena refused to see a doctor.
Yeah.
Refused to let the doctor see him until it was appropriate time in the match to do it. Like, he just said, no, we could do it. I literally almost said, it's like, we could do it later during whatever spot. And they kept going in the match. That match, I only caught the end of it. I didn't watch a whole lot of it, but I saw that match. Falcon Arrow, or superplex into Falcon Arrow. Well done, Seth Rollins. Well done. Mm-hmm. But again, we could just stop the John Cena can't wrestle, John Cena sucks, because how many other guys would that happen? That bad of a break happens to them. And
the thing is, I've always been the guy who says John Cena can wrestle. I've followed his career from when he was the prototype. I've never been in that kind of group.
But at one point in time, that was the thing to Chan was you can't wrestle.
Yeah, and a lot of it is more because of the fact that he went and started doing the Hogan. I call it the Hogan effect, right? Where it was the 5 moves of doom. I did an article on Genius.com. Check it out. It's talking about Vince's obsession with United States of America and apple pie, and how once you become a main eventer, all you are is a victim of 5 moves. And
America, fuck yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that John Cena's gone back to the mid-card, in a sense, with the upper mid-card championship, the United States Championship, it elevated the title and it elevated Cena in a sense that he wasn't restricted to his main event prowess, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. He did. I thought Cena said it best himself. He said it on the on Jericho's podcast. I was never that guy who was gonna be mad or upset if I wasn't in the main event. Give me what I would do, I'll go out and do it every night. And he's definitely brought prestige back to the United States title. He's brought relevancy back to the United States title, if nothing else.
But I don't think it's just him. I think it's a combination of people who have worked with him. Rusev.
Yes, Rusev was... Well, Rusev was the mountain to climb.
Yeah, but then you had Kevin Owens, then you had Sami Zayn, you had Cesaro, you had these gifted individuals.
This whole open challenge gimmick.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say is, if it was me, if I was booking right now, I would book Cena in a situation that if you don't want to take the title off of Cena one-on-one, do it in a situation like you're doing a championship scramble match, or stack the deck against Cena.
They could just deliberately bite off Ring of Honor again, like they have done so many times in the past with angles, and just make it title versus title, and then give Seth Rollins the United States title too,
and then have Seth Rollins hold both championships and having to defend both championships.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. I don't have actually. That was kind of bitten off of TNA. No lie.
Let's not talk about that anymore.
If I could ever give TNA credit for one thing, it would be that. That's it.
If I could give TNA credit for one thing, is they had the Young Bucks working for them.
Well, I'd say it would be that.
They didn't know what to do.
They had that, and it also had poor execution when they had Angle defend every single championship in one pay-per-view night.
They had Okada at the age of 21. And he made him do a stupid, like, what was Green Hornet's fucking Kato gimmick? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
Exactly. What will probably, in my opinion, go down as one of the greatest talents ever to walk the face of the earth. Certainly the best drop kick ever. And they made him do a Butler gimmick. Yeah. Anyway. Moving on about TNA. Moving on back to John Cena. We could just stop the Cena hate.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, I think the Cena haters are at this point very fucking delusional.
Yeah, or at least the people that say he can't wrestle and all this other stuff, because that just showed that match itself showed his dedication to the business. But then when you factor in everything else that he's done over the last 11 years, he's... if they're, like, again, the WWE Hall of Fame is kind of a very much a sham, but if there was a first ballot, John Cena is first immediate A1, 100% of the vote first ballot Hall of Famer. Just, yeah. So...
Yeah, John Cena is the guy who definitely deserves his place in the company.
Whatever he has.
Yeah. He has killed himself and put himself into so much.
At some point he was going to be cut. I mean, they were going to release him, and then
I hate his haircut.
And then he started rapping and off to the fucking races.
Mm.
Yeah, so, like, Cena has earned my respect before, but if you can't respect the man after, or just honestly say you don't respect the man after that,
I just don't like the fact that he's Vince McMahon's puppet.
Well, it's
part of being in that position. I get
exactly.
That. Yeah, so Austin had the same situation, but it wasn't reined in as much.
But Austin was a different character than Cena. Like Austin's character was the anti-authority figure. And
also, you've got to look at the time. You know, during the Attitude Era, people would say that we want the Attitude Era back a lot more and all this and that stuff.
No, you don't.
But at the time, it was a time where Vince was listening to his talent. If someone said,
he was listening to the Click.
And the Click wasn't the one who put Austin in his position.
Yeah, because I don't know if you watched, because WWE has just recently made one of their home video release, which is still to this day kind of is a head scratcher to me when you have an online distribution platform. But that's neither here nor there. I won't judge their business model. Got to get money in some way, or losing it from the pay-per-views, I guess.
Vince.
No, excuse me,
but Vince listening to everybody else.
That's what I'm saying. In this Click documentary that they released, or the Click Rules, as I think.
Yeah, I saw the
preview,
Kevin Nash thing.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty good thing. I haven't watched it all. I haven't bought the DVD itself yet, but if you like, this is led to believe that they really were dominating wrestling for a good period of time. And they really had the influence, as much influence on Vince McMahon as anybody did. I mean, ultimately, so yeah, Vince made the final decision, but it were those people that were in his head giving him the ideas, and then he took that and then made it into his own thing and was off to the races with it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, you know, in the end.
That doesn't happen nowadays, though. Of course not. No one.
Yeah, and Vince kind of toots his own horn a bit too much. And
do you think it should? Like, do you think? I mean, I'm sure there are guys that do have his ear. Like, I'm sure Cena probably has his ear. I'm sure probably Cena's the only one that has the ear of the boss directly.
Do you remember the SmackDown
Undertaker,
6?
Cena, and Undertaker.
Do you remember the
Brock?
SmackDown 6 as opposed to the Raw? Do you remember when Raw was Triple H dominated? They had the most racist, controversial storylines. It was terrible.
Katie
Vick. What are you talking about? I loved it. I loved Evolution. I loved Triple H.
Yeah, I did.
And the fact that Triple H buried everybody. They called it, what was it? The championship, the title run of doom. You know, where
Triple H's Reign of Terror.
That was it. And then you had the SmackDown 6. Do you know why the SmackDown 6 was so successful? And by the way, John Cena was part of that.
Heyman.
Yeah, and Paul Heyman.
No, this
is why Paul Heyman was so
basic thugonomics.
But you can't sit there and go, oh, Heyman did all of it. It was all Heyman. No, it was because Heyman listened to these guys and said, what would you like to do? Edge just said it countless times. Heyman came up to me and said, what would you like to do? He said to Cena, how would you like to do this? You know, he took more chances with people, and that's what Vince used to do. And I think that's why the product became so stale, because they became a entity that said, let's tell these guys how they should act. Let's tell these guys how they should do. Let's write their promos. And as a company, that's what they've kind of lost. And you know, it leads to another story that apparently on WrestleZone was talking about this recently, that Daniel Bryan came out and said when he wanted to re-debut on SmackDown, and he wanted to try and get them to split SmackDown off from Raw again to give them a chance to build new stars like Cesaro, to build new guys like Ambrose, and give people a chance to build themselves up in the roster and give that upper mid-card guys who are never going to have the championship around their waist because of guys like Vince a chance to stand out. And that's the reason why you're not seeing as many people around the world title picture that you should do. Ambrose, in my opinion, should have been a world champion by now. You should have seen
again. I just think
with Rollins extended.
In any other situation, yes, Dean Ambrose is a world champion. But when you have Brock Lesnar around, it's just
no. But that's the thing, and he's a guy that I think would have been great as a world heavyweight champion.
Brock Lesnar goes away, you could do all this stuff. You could separate SmackDown. You could do all that other stuff. As long as Brock
Lesnar. But that's
the
thing. If you test the waters a little bit in terms of your talent, the only way you can do that is having the World Heavyweight Championship. Yes, it was an upper mid-card title, but it worked. It elevated Daniel Bryan. It elevated CM Punk. It elevated all these other guys who proved they could be a world champion. And it also had some failures, like Jack Swagger, for instance. And in some cases, Dolph Ziggler, who truthfully should have had a longer reign, but they decided against it. and wanted to put the title on Alberto Del Rio in his reign of terror. The fact of the matter,
I say they were gun shy on Alberto on Ziggler that one time. Well, and also he got hurt, but that's
and to me that's the thing. You've got to look at it and say, if we're gonna basically build the stars of tomorrow, we're gonna need that secondary championship, and I've always believed in that. But again, that's a story for another show.
No, I do believe you're right, and you know who else is actually going through that same thing now? New Japan is kind of going through that same thing too. There's been a few injuries this year. I'm doing my 5 minutes of Japanese wrestling talk. There's been a few significant injuries along the road on this year's G1 Classic Climax. Nakamura was, I guess, had a heart or tore his shoulder or his elbow, his arm, or something like that. You're seeing the age of New Japan's heavyweight roster really show. Guys like Tanahashi, Nakamura, they're all in their late 30s, almost 40. Their time is waning at the top in New Japan. Luckily now they have Okada. Okada's positioned in the position to be the guy to carry the company for the next 10 years, but there's nobody else on the heavyweight picture in New Japan that can really come up Japanese wise, because everybody else, the core of the roster is old.
You need to build talent, and that's the thing when it comes to any company. If you've even got a company where, for instance, you've got like the biggest exec and your main brain guy, the main pioneer of your company, has died, who's going to replace him? You need younger, fresher talent.
You need a plan of succession in place.
And especially if you're in the entertainment industry, and you're not always going to rely on the same stars. You're not going to always rely on the same people. You have to change things up every now and then. Otherwise, it's never going to work. And that's kind of where the problem lies. When you look at guys like John Cena is on his way out. Even though this has probably been the best run he's ever had at the time.
I think we're gonna look back at John Cena's career when he's done, and think we will finally view his stuff with Edge and Orton as what's really his best, because that's when people were hating everything he did.
No, but wrestling wise, in terms of his talent standing out, this is the best.
I think we're gonna look back. We're gonna look back in a few years' time, and those matches with Edge and Orton will be. They'll hold true, and we'll look at them differently. But no, I'm agreeing with you, because he's experimenting.
He's no spring chicken at the moment, though. So eventually,
he's still continuing to innovate. We did the springboard stunner,
which sucks. In all honesty,
they're positioning guys
he's
like
getting there.
Rollins up there, but the problem is, you've got too many people still whispering in the ears of Vince McMahon and creative saying, this person shouldn't do it, this person shouldn't be that person. These guys need to shut the fuck up, because these guys are just trying to wrangle and have a job.
Dinosaurs will die. That's always been mine. That's always
been
my motto.
You need to let the talent, but the mindset hasn't, and that's where the problem lies. You need to let your talent shine. If you let them shine, you will get the best out of them. Look at the way that Hollywood, to me, the Marvel movies, if they've done one thing right, they've managed to unleash a shitload of amazing new talent out there.
Give people that weren't given the chances to direct movies are given chances to direct movies.
Or on people who are even able to act. Like Chris Pratt, for instance. Do you think anyone would even give a fuck about Chris Pratt if it wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy?
Well, he had gotten into other movies, but I don't think anybody else is really going to invest.
It would have been an indie. I think he would have been an indie film actor. At best.
He would have no. He would have been. You know what it could have been? He would have been continuing to just get the roles that he was getting at the time, which were bit parts in very good movies. He wouldn't have been a lead actor. Guardians of the Galaxy proved that he could be a lead actor, and there you go. He's a lead actor. Now he could carry franchises.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
I want Star-Lord to show up in Star Wars.
It kind of pushed him into a direction,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Most people wouldn't even consider him being.
It made him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You need to allow people to run with that baton. James Gunn is another one. James Gunn, I think that his biggest claim to fame before Guardians of the Galaxy was Lollipop Chainsaw. Doing that game with Suda51. He was a guy who mostly his directing talents were based in trauma movies, and very much a B movie presence. They gave him the baton. The man ran with it. The man freaking threw it and launched it into fucking space.
He hit a home run, dude. You're talking about people who hit home runs with their very first movie.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you compare professional wrestling, because this is what they like to do, they like to compare professional wrestling to entertainment and to films. If you compare professional wrestling to films, they're not doing that. They're still in that old mindset of let it lie. You know, again, comic book fans, if you're a comic book fan out there, Stan Lee. Do you know how Stan Lee became the president of Marvel Comics at one point? Anyone know?
No, I don't.
Watch a documentary called With Great Power. It's called The Stan Lee Story. And
I thought he was the only one at the company left.
Pretty much. And this is the funny thing.
The company went almost under.
He started as the gopher for the company. Then he decided they let him write stories. He was writing small little stories for a section of the comic books. He proved that he could do that. Then he started writing bigger books and bigger stories. And the two, basically, I think it was Jack Kirby and there was another guy. They left the company because it was only two guys in Marvel Comics at the time. Mm-hmm. Stan took over, and they're like, the head was like, hire who you want, do what you like, keep it within the budget, got no problem. And the company blew up with this guy's ideas. 99% of the characters in Marvel Comics are Stans.
Yep.
You know, and the fact that you can sit there and gather the fact this guy gets a paycheck.
Sorry, I mean, we're going to talk about tangents. No,
but it's basically just saying, as New Japan goes, as WWE goes, as professional wrestling goes, in order
you
for
need to innovate. Innovate and give new talent the chance to perform. And I think there's a lot of new talent in Japan that I think is going to be, but they need more. They need more. It's not going to. It's Ibushi is only going to get you so far.
Yeah, and the only guy I think who's actually been elevated to a point where he is the future of professional wrestling. There's two guys. Seth Rollins is one, but he hasn't been booked that way. The other guy is Jay Lethal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
Jay is fucking untouchable.
Well, at least right now in ROH, he's untouchable.
Yeah.
Oh God, I actually. I was gonna. All right, bringing it all back around. You're talking about comparing things. If there's one thing you can't compare it to, and this is just will kind of be the last kind of point. Dana White, right before the UFC fight went on, it was Saturday when all this stuff kicked off. Someone tweeted at him, "Man, I wish I could watch UFC 190 for $9.99, just like WWE Network." Dana White, in all his divine wisdom, says, "Well, yeah, fake shit should be $9.99, bro. Whatever, yada yada yada."
And he was trying to say it was a joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. See, look, Dana White may things. He might not run the UFC, but Dana White is a cunning PR teacher, PR master. I guess you could say. He knew he was kicking the hive, that big football. I mean, it was a big softball at this point in time. The calling professional wrestling fake, especially when a lot of his contemporaries and friends, are former professional wrestlers. I mean, I'm not saying he's friends with people like Stone Cold Steve Austin, but when so many ex-professional wrestlers and current professional wrestlers gravitate towards his product. You should at least slightly conscious. But he knew that was going to kick up a Twitter shitstorm. Look, don't feed the trolls, man. And this goes on both ways. He got a lot of people that were calling him out, and a lot of people that Jeremy Borash canceled his UFC pay-per-view buy and donated it to somebody, and then Dana responded with some even more meathead response. Oh, it's free in the UK. Well, Borash wasn't in the UK. It's just ridiculous. This guy's job essentially is to do these things.
Yeah,
you don't have to respond to everything.
Yeah, he's being, in my opinion, I think he wanted to get a response, but then once he got the negative backlash and realized,
he didn't realize exactly what it was going to be. Like he said the F word when it comes to wrestling fans in a negative connotation, and then that just, yeah, man. Just and I love the response that it got. Seth Rollins says, "Guys, let's because everything Dana White says he has like 1 million matches." Just good Twitter jousting or jabbing there from the WWE.
Yeah, and then Sheamus came out with some really convoluted one of wrestling is fake, and then he starts turning it into
he got on his soapbox for all his injuries and stuff like that. Like any wrestler, I mean, every wrestler has the right to do that, and it's all well documented.
No, he basically turned it into an anagram of like wrestling is F means this, A means this, K means that, and I was just like,
Sheamus, you don't get paid to be smart.
Fast action knockout entertainment or something like that, and I just went, and then he was just like, "Can we all be happy?" And I just sat there and I was like, "Dude, that's just as stupid as your fucking haircut."
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
He is a walking joke at the moment.
I really do. I agree with you, but I think maybe putting the Money in the Bank briefcase on him is a measure to make somebody else. I think he's only holding that temporarily.
It, in my opinion,
that's why I don't think that's why he doesn't need it. That's why it doesn't make any sense for him to have it, and that's why somebody else is going to take it off of him.
I think in terms of
that's for another show.
Again, we've talked about the whole universe thing and what makes sense in that universe, and a lot of this situation, I just
not a lot makes sense.
As a wrestling fan, my teeth grit every time I see something that logically and again, guys, it's storytelling logistics. If it's logical in that universe, and a lot of this stuff, you sit there and go, "Why did you make that decision? What was the point?"
Yeah, you have to go. It's like, I can believe that as happening.
As a wrestling fan, or I can believe that happening within the WWE's universe.
And that's a lot. And like wrestling fans, we put up with the belief of an awful lot. We do. Some of us actually believed that they were going to chop off Val Venus's penis with a sword, and Val Venus's penis was actually. I can't resist an opportunity to bring that situation up, because that just, again, as far as absurd wrestling things that they've ever tried to do, that definitely ranks quite highly. Can't say that doesn't. But again, of all this, Undertaker and Kane are brothers. Like we put up with an awful lot, but at least make it. And then I'm going to bring this even further back around again, because you can clearly tell I'm ending this podcast. The one thing we thought, and we all salivated for at WrestleMania, was maybe a potential Ronda Rousey Stephanie McMahon showdown someday.
Mm-hmm.
That will never happen now.
Dana White has actually gone out on the
it's not even anything about Dana White, because eventually at one point in time Ronda will leave UFC. She's not going to stay in UFC for 3 years at the most. She stays. She's 28.
She gets out. Wrestler, dude. She won't be a pro wrestler.
She gets out before, not even pro wrestler. She gets out before 32.
In my opinion, I've got to believe her next step's going to be Hollywood, and if it's either going to be working as an actress in some B-movie films, or action star, like, back in the day where you used to have lead action female stars.
She'll be the first female action star.
Well, not the first. She'll be the first of this generation.
Right.
Of the noughties.
Right. Here's my thing on it. This fight has absolutely ruined the possibility of Stephanie McMahon, Ronda Rousey professional wrestling match.
She didn't just beat the woman; she made her shit herself.
No, that wasn't real. Come on. If you actually believe that, that's stupid. I saw that I could show you the exact same picture, and there's no thing. It's somebody just literally just.
She knocked her so far unconscious, her butt was in the air and her face was on the fucking.
She was face down, ass up. I will.
Yes.
I will absolutely.
She looked like a Christmas turkey.
I I love that there's even still Ronda haters out there that say, "Oh, they protected her. She was down." Correa was down, face down, ass up. Like I understand one thing, getting knocked down and falling down. There's a difference between that kind of knockdown and what happened to Correa. Correa was down, and then didn't even try and pop back up. She was just like,
she couldn't.
What?
She was.
What happened?
No, you look at the girl's face. She looked like she was out of it. She was. Her eyes
She's like,
looked like they
okay,
were glazed
I'm
over.
right. She's like, I'm okay.
If she got back up, she would have been dead.
She didn't. And that's why I think John McCarthy stopped the fight when he did.
Yeah.
Because it was over. We had seen enough. She hit her once, and then she hit her again on the way down.
Yep.
It was a double tap, man.
This wasn't even like $1 Million Baby where she gets like punched in the face and her head hits the chair. It was
it was bonk out. She was asleep for a good 2 seconds.
Yeah,
and then woke up.
You can't sit there and try and white knight the situation.
No.
Rousey destroyed her, and again, perfectly placed, perfectly timed, and she had all that aggression and power to go with it. This girl is smart, and this girl is lethal. At the moment, whoever takes her down, they've got to. It's like with Ali, right? You're either going to take her down when she's kind of past it, which is what happened with Ali.
And she's never going to get to that point.
Yeah, which in today's fighting genre, you don't usually get to that point. You're kind of
she retires. Retires on top. Like she'll do the cyborg fight, I think, and then that's it. She'll be like, okay, I've literally beaten everybody I do. The next 4 fighters in her weight class that she could fight are all her, or the next 3 fighters that are in her weight class that you could fight are all her best friends. So she'll let her best friends fight over her empire, and she'll go conquer this new other thing.
But that's the thing. It's
whatever she wants.
In the fighting leagues now, that's what it is. You go in there young, you get out young. You're not going to stay there. You know, even Mayweather. Mayweather's like, what age is he pushing now? Is he in his like?
He's almost 40.
Almost 40. You rarely ever see that. 39. You know, most guys are usually bailing out by 35.
No, Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins was a world champion in his 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he still actively fights. Bernard Hopkins is a freak of nature, but that's you very often, very rarely see guys performing at the high level. Any fighters, men and women, fighting at the highest level into their mid to late 30s. Damian Maia was another great fight on the UFC card last night. Just completely, just a masterful Brazilian jiu-jitsu performance. He's in his 30. He's in almost 30. He's almost 40. You know, it's very, very rare for guys to stick around and to still be dominant at that level. And I don't think anybody will ever do that to her. And even if somebody does, then that's it. Then she'll walk away, I think. Because she's already proved herself, and that she has nothing more to prove. She fought this person and she lost. That's it. Move on.
And that's the thing, and that's where you've got to look at it in terms of that story. In terms of Ronda's story, it's going to be continuing, and we get to see her do, as Brandon put it, we're going to see him probably about 4 or 5 more fights and see how she progresses.
I say 2 to 3 more fights at the most, 4 at the very most. I think that she does this one with Miesha Tate to get the clean sweep over her. And then maybe she fights Holly Holm. Then the Cyborg fight. She does 3 fights in the next 2 years, and then I think that's when you start seriously thinking where she'll pack it in and she'll call it a career, and then because she's literally been the only UFC female bantamweight champion. She's it. That's been her division. They had to create. Well, not her. Had to create a new division. They had to add a new division of fighters.
Yeah.
They had to add straw weights just to give, because this was so successful, and to have somebody else other than Ronda beating everybody up. So that's it for us on Slamcast this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Talk About MMA. We're going to continue to do it if you like us doing it. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for watching us on the Retro Unlim Network. Thank you for listening to us on whatever outlet you are listening to us on. For Michael Burhan. Oh wait, I gotta do the other traditional thing. We do the pluggity plug. Sorry, I'm all fakakta.
It's all good.
Day. It's been a long weekend.
This is officially my last show today.
You said that the last 2 times in a row.
I know, but I've managed to kind of come back for a couple of these shows because I've been going back and forth trying to sort some stuff out. Those who don't know, currently homeless at the moment, so I've been sending like packages and stuff over to my relatives' house. So I've been going to their place to kind of grab a few bits and pieces. And because I've been doing that, I've been able to stay probably a night or two. And when I've been staying, I've basically been able to kind of jump on and do Slamcast. Most of the time I've been sitting down living in a tent. What does this got to do with anything? My YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheNerdGenius is changing. I did a video talking about it. If you go to the channel now using my iPhone, I'm sorry about the framing because it's got this weird kind of long framing thing and a big black thing in the background. And the reason being is I have to have hold the phone in sideways.
Landscape mode.
Yeah, so it films it in landscape. So I never knew this. See, I'm learning.
Yes, that's how you film in landscape. I could have told you that.
Well, I never knew. But it updates you exactly what's going on in the channel.
And knowing is half the battle.
I'm shooting a documentary at the moment called Homeless in the EU. So what it is, it's me going through my journey from the United Kingdom, living homeless in the United Kingdom, trying to find work and all that other stuff. And I'll be uploading it onto YouTube, onto my YouTube channel, so you can check it out. I'll be doing vlogs and stuff like that whenever I get the chance to, whenever I'll basically be sitting in my tent resting. And I'll be traveling from place to place, looking at going to France and then maybe a hot country like Portugal, see if there's any work going on there. And then hopefully see where my life takes me at the moment. I'll be directing my last movie in the UK in the next couple of weeks because it's kind of been drawing out, trying to get it done. A couple of projects have been edited, hence another reason I've been going back and forth because I need where my equipment is. It's here, so that's the reason why you're hearing me in crystal clarity in a sense. And it's been fun. I'm not going to say my goodbyes because I'll probably end up getting dragged on the show at some point, or things may get better to the point where I'll have my own accommodation and I could actually do these shows
next
again.
Week.
So we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see, and we'll see what happens. But in the next couple of days, my own official website is launching, michaelburhan.com. So you get to see my show reels, you'll get to see voice reels, you get to have a look at my director's reel edits and stuff like that as well. You can have a look at free content, which is part of the site, and also check out like many photos and pictures and stuff. And also there's a contact form if you need to contact me and ask for all the other little bits and pieces. My IMDb credits have been updated, so if you Google Michael Burhan on IMDb, you can check me out there. And it got some great credits, including my Children of Men credits, my credits from The Magic Flute, directed by Kenneth Branagh, great story about that, and loads of other little movies and bits and pieces that I've done, including shorts, which was a long time gone. That was entered in the London Film Festival. Did pretty well. Got a very harsh review by Miguel, if you want to check out that review on nerdgenius.com as well. And that's pretty much it. If you're out and about and you want me to, and you need my assistance with anything, you want me to direct something for you or produce something for you, just leave a contact in the contact form and we can talk prices. And there you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Nick, what are you doing?
All right, I'm over on Twitter at GamingPegasus187. I'm on Facebook at Nick Horaceck. I'm on Instagram at Pegasus187. I'm on YouTube at the Gaming Pegasus 187. I'm gonna get this Slamcast up and rendered and everything, and then maybe I'll just wait till next week doing our video on YouTube because it's already 7:30 here, and yeah. But I'm all over the place. I'm on Slamcast every Friday night. I'm on I got gameplay every once in a while. I'm over in the Wrestling Revolution MMA forum thingamajig because
Wrestling MMA Revolution forum,
the forum. So find me there. Yeah, Brandon.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Basically.
Yep.
So yeah, if you liked hearing us talk about stuff, you could listen to everything on the Retro Unlim channel. Lawn Boy is not here, but he's working. But we miss him. Some of us. So yeah, follow me on the Twitter, @BrandonAllHope. I might do a Twitch stream coming up soon. I'm gonna try and go for something very special, the greatest achievement in digital sports. Not really. Gonna do that. More on that. TwitchTV.com, Brando Calrissian 420. So I think that's it, man.
Yep.
I think we talked about everything. I think we had a pretty good show too. I think this isn't our last time doing this with just the three of us. I also think that it's time to end the show now. I think that you should also go out and support independent wrestling because that's the future. That's where you will see the stars that we will be talking about somewhere in the next few years. Whether it's, no matter where you live, I guarantee you there's people in a small hall in a wrestling ring trying to live their dream. So, if you got a few shekels and you got to want to take your family out on a good night of entertainment, I guarantee you will find some entertainment. You might see some stars from the past, and you see some up-and-coming names from the future, or you just see local guys around your house or around your neighborhood and local community. It's all about keeping it. It's all about supporting the brotherhood and the sisterhood. For all the good brothers and sisters out there, if you're performing shows this weekend, next weekend, or whatever else, take care of yourself and each other. That party life. Be safe. Party responsibly.
What? 1 second.
So,
give me like 5 minutes.
For my soon-to-be returning co-host again for the third time, Michael Burhan. For acting co-executive producer guy who I'm just fucking up all their titles, Nick Horaceck. For the absent Lawn Boys post, Dave Wade. For Miguel Leon, who I tried to get on this show but couldn't. For Chris Jester, who would have been on this show had I just answered my messages. For... Jeez, who else do I want to dedicate this show? For Roddy Piper.
Yep.
Go forth and spread beauty and light. Peace, love, and humptiness. And then don't have to play the song. I don't know. Play Roddy Piper's theme song at the end because that's what we should play.